Hey friends, I want to talk about Gypsy Rose's recent Rage Bait collab. Because whenever it comes to cases like the murder of Dee Dee Blanchard, I am all about observing patterns in these people. And it appears to me to a certain extent, Gypsy Rose has always been a rage baiter. She loves it. I think it comes from deep down inside. And so the collab with Natalie is not surprising, but yet it still is a bit because she, I believe, is a natural rage baiter, like I said, but not in the modern way that comes with a very thick skin that simply doesn't care about the backlash. I believe Gypsy has a natural desire, a dark impulsivity that causes her to always just want to do that very thing that she knows people don't want her to do. It seems that she can't help herself, in my opinion. That is an excuser. I just mean it appears to be a real compulsion, this impulsivity to negativity. In my opinion, she did it when she was pretending to be a disabled child with her mom, because we have a lot of stories from people who would see them out and about around the town at that time. And multiple of them say that whenever they would try to have a conversation with Dee Dee, Gypsy would all of a sudden start acting up and acting out in a very strange way that made people uncomfortable. And I feel like that is due to her impulse to always do the thing that she knows people just really don't want to see. She might not even know why, but it comes from a weird impulse she has, in my opinion, based on observing her history and patterns. What do y'all think, friends? It definitely appeared that she could not stand for Dee Dee's attention to be anywhere else. And then we see more evidence of this in her book. Gypsy wrote in her book that they were bonded by the lie, and neither could walk away because of the fear of the consequences. Now, one of Gypsy Rose's videos, the Into the Weeds got in their FOIA request of the videos that she sent to Nick before the murder, Gypsy said, "Yes, I could just get up and walk, but everyone would hate me. We would lose all our friends." She found it easier to plan and have executed a murder of her mother, a literal matricide, easier to do that than to admit a fraud. I find that strange and disturbing. She knew that as an adult at that time, that if the con was revealed, she would face consequences. She would bear some responsibility as an adult. And she found murder the more reasonable choice for her own comfort. Now, the rage bait joke about the horrific and heinous death of her mother at her planning is not shocking to those of us who covered and followed her closely since her release, because we've all seen clips of her on other people's panels where her main big audience isn't so likely to see her saying things that indicate no remorse, saying things about how, well, of course, she was a shit piece of mom. What am I supposed to feel? She even said one time, compared her to the funny mustache man that YouTube doesn't like for people to mention, and said nobody mourned him, comparing Dee Dee to him. Now, most of us who cover or follow the case of the murder of Dee Dee Blanchard started out with the opinion that Dee Dee definitely did some conning and there may have been some levels of ABUSC there, but we didn't quite believe the medical abuse and fully. And we also did not believe that murder was in any way the deserved punishment for whatever Dee Dee did. We all believed that Dee Dee deserved the chance at a prison sentence and rehabilitation and stuff like Gypsy got. Now, as time has went on and more information has come out, a lot of us have really shifted in that. Some of us all the way to justice for Dee Dee, to clear her name. And for me personally, that moment came when we saw the video of Gypsy telling Nick that she had a seizure when she was young and a temporary paralysis, and that she chose not to tell her mother whenever the feeling came back to her legs because she was afraid her mom might not love her so much. Once again, absolutely cannot stand for Dee Dee's attention to be on anything but her. And more evidence that Gypsy enjoyed the role she was playing. She discussed with Nick continuing that con while they were together. She said, "Don't worry about money. I can pretend to be your disabled younger sister and sit in a cart." And she went over her methods of stealing. They didn't sound very sophisticated. It didn't sound like anything that would work from what y'all educated me in the comments, because I don't know how shoplifting works. At first, I thought it sounded like something that she was accomplishing, but y'all educated me that no, the things she was saying don't actually work. And we're pretty sure that the shoplifting that she did get by with stealing was because people actually thought she was a disabled child. Now, also on that shift, due to the Blanchards handing out copies of Gypsy's medical records and those being published for everyone to see, we've been able to see that Gypsy actually did have a lot of medical conditions. And if Dee Dee did exaggerate some of them, there were more that were real. And then as time went on, we got the prison emails from another FOIA, and we're able to read Gypsy confirming herself in those emails a lot more real physical conditions than any of us ever knew, and complaining that she didn't think she'd be able to work a job because of her conditions. Kind of like her mama was saying all those years. Conditions that Gypsy and her public defender, Mike Stanfield, told the public were all fabricated. Several of those turned out to be very real, including a rare genetic disorder, a microdeletion of the 1q21.1 chromosome. That particular microdeletion has very distinct characteristics in people's appearance who have it. Here is a picture of a person who is not Gypsy Rose. People confuse this for her because this is the actual poster child for this microdeletion. It's quite astonishing how much they look alike. After the video came out of Gypsy saying that she did not tell her mom about when she got feeling back in her legs because she was afraid her mom might not love her so much, she did a little spin on it, trying to say that she doesn't even remember and wondered herself, what a girl, what are you talking about whenever she watched that video? And then her method was to spin it and say, but how horrific is that I was afraid that she might not love me so much? We don't know exactly what Dee Dee said or did behind closed doors, but whenever we see the video evidence and the email evidence of all the things that Gypsy did behind closed doors, for sure, it seems very, very clear that Gypsy has an obsessive, impulsive nature, and she had a very real obsessive attachment to her mom's attention. I think in addition to not being able to stand public condemnation or responsibility for the fraud that she would have to face as an adult had she just stood up and walked away, I don't think she could walk away from her mother's attention. Like she said in the book, we were bound together. I think part of her being so comfortable with that ultimate solution for Dee Dee, as opposed to leaving her behind, was that no one else would have Dee Dee's attention. Am I right or am I reaching, friends? What do y'all think? Another thing that makes me think that that is just simply not true, that Gypsy would ever have any concern about losing her mother's love, is that Gypsy shot the woman with a pellet gun. She had to go to the hospital and have the pellets removed, most of them. And she then proceeded to chase her around the house with a dagger and hold her at knife point in the bathroom. And what did Dee Dee do? She covered for her. She made up a story. She continued loving and caring for Gypsy. So I don't know how in the world Gypsy would think anything was going to make her lose Dee Dee's love. It's really weird, some of the stories that Gypsy shared in her book of Dee Dee physically ABUSing her, considering that Gypsy doesn't share any stories of any physical retaliation to her shooting and chasing her around with a dagger, because Dee Dee could obviously overpower Gypsy easily. If she was that physically abusive, it's very odd that there was no physical retaliation to that once Gypsy wasn't expecting it. We also know that Gypsy and her public defender told the whole world and convinced everyone that Dee Dee used meds to drug and control Gypsy. However, again, I think that dark impulse to just do and say the thing that people don't want to hear, just mess it all up a little bit, came out in Gypsy. And she began claiming that she had a drug addiction herself and that she stole her mother's medication. She recounts in her book herself grinding up stolen pain meds and putting them into her G tube, claiming that it gave her instant relief. Now, people who have actually experienced real addiction to these kinds of medication have severely questioned her story because her descriptions do not sound like the descriptions of an addict, according to addicts who've read it. They say it sounds like the descriptions of a user, a casual user. You can use habits and very much like and want to use them more and still not meet the qualifications of an addict. So, why would Gypsy subvert her own story of her mother medically abusing her in such a way where her only claims of improper medication being given to her in her whole book, really, other than I think about some Oragel, was her talking about doing it to herself? Is it a self confession? Like, what's going on there? Is that the dark impulse again to rage bait without even knowing what rage bait is? I don't know, friends. What do you think? Another way that Gypsy recently rage baited was having a baby life-size doll in a car seat behind her during a video that she did driving for no apparent reason. And the doll and the car seat were both improperly strapped in. People could only see a hand coming out of the car seat and assumed it was her baby. And lots of people were putting in the comments that they were going to call CPS for her having her baby unsafe and improperly strapped. Well, Gypsy immediately did another video and was like, "Oh my god, y'all called CPS over a doll," and pulls the doll out and shows everyone. One part of the rage bait of that is there's a large group of people who absolutely believe that Gypsy never had a baby, that it's all a hoax with a reborn doll. Now, I personally don't believe that because I don't see the Blanchards having the ability to organize and maintain that kind of a hoax. However, Gypsy and Ken are very aware of this, and they have went on panels claiming that this is the one that bothers them the most. Now, things that bother Gypsy that she claims bothers her, I think really just scratches her dark impulse to want to say the thing and make people argue and mess with people's minds and rage bait, knowing that there is a large group of people who don't believe she ever had a baby, that it's all a hoax and that it's a doll specifically, and also knowing that there's another large group of anti-jip people who do believe that she had a baby and that they don't have the capability to maintain that. I believe she leaned into that with rage bait with that baby doll in the car seat because she would like to see all of the anti gypsy creators fighting with each other over the details of what we're exposing her for, in my opinion. Now, one part of her rage bait with Natalie Reynolds that I'm not even sure was actually rage bait, I think it might have been something else, was her claiming that she wiped her butt with towels. Now, she said on the TMZ explanation and non apology interview that this was when she was a kid. So that means poor Dee Dee had to wash her shitty towels just because she liked doing that. Now that brings me back to something that we all started suspecting a little bit, all of us who were deeply reading her emails and covering, is that she might have a scat fetish. Multiple times, her and Keen talked about Gypsy eating his Hershey pie in a way that made us think went deeper than, a certain type of adult play. And people who are into that kind of stuff, from what I understand and have, heard from other people too, often make an attempt to find people who are also interested in it by doing a thing known as breadcrumbing, where they just drop little like casual like jokes, hints, confessions, not going all the way like I have a scat fetish kind of thing, but just being like Gypsy did, like telling little poop stories. She showed baby poop on her arm. Nobody wants to see that. And a lot of poop talk in the emails, a lot of diaper talk with her and Nick. She even said in a video to Nick that she met a lot of men before him with diaper fetishes. And that brings me to another thing that irritated me about the TMZ interview. The TMZ interviewer went into the interview saying, "Oh, we know you don't know about social media. You don't understand that. That had to be so overwhelming." Y'all, she had a MySpace, a Facebook, multiple Facebooks, no telling what else, a YouTube channel. Nick made her a website. Like social media was her life before prison, to a certain extent in prison, because she had people posting for her and reporting back all her numbers to her. I saw her emailing her number stats to people all the time about her TikTok videos and her Facebook posts and the Facebook groups supporting her and that type of thing. She was a social media girly, I think before the term social media was even that ubiquitous. It is all she has ever wanted to do. So while there is one obvious major vile aspect to what she said and the fact that she tried to claim in her TMZ interview that, she wasn't joking about the murder at all. But she followed up, we listen and we don't judge, saying, my own mother, to saying, I used to like to wipe my butt with actual bath towels, breadcrumbing some poop stuff in. And I'm not sure that that was truly rage bait. I'm sure she enjoyed how that makes people feel, but I think she hoped some people might chime in and talk about their poop experiences. Again, am I right or am I reaching, friends? What do y'all think? Now, in that TMZ interviewed non apology thing that she did, the TMZ reporter said a lot of people feel like you doing this whole, joke thing means that you don't feel remorse, that you weren't showing any remorse. What would you say to that? And Gypsy, either intentionally or unintentionally, completely took it a different way and misunderstood what she said. Like I said, maybe just intentionally because she doesn't have remorse. We all know that. If she had any remorse, she wouldn't be sitting around calling her a shit piece of mom on other people's live panels or comparing her to Honey Mustache Guy. But Gypsy answered it by saying, "Oh, no, that wasn't the case at all. The only reason I did this was because Natalie and I had a conversation about how TikTok is very, very tricky about certain words. You can't say, homicide, murder, this and that. And so the only thing I could think to do was go, eh. And she never addressed whether or not joking about it like that meant that she had no remorse. I think because she obviously doesn't. We all know that. But what do y'all think, friends? Let me know in the comments. Am I right or am I reaching? And we'll go out with palate cleanser.